So we had some viewer comments. Let's see. One was an interesting one that said, because if you've watched this show at all, you probably heard us say a cornerstone of one of the reasons we think we're madness is universal, is that we walk around really believing we know what this is. Like, I know what this is. When I look in the mirror, I know what that is looking back at me. And a cornerstone of our work is we have no idea what that is. I mean, we can, within our context, our tribal context, we can say Homo sapiens, animal, biological form, with personality attached, what we call a dying ignoramus, or an ego-encapsulated meat suit, I think we used to say. But what we say is we don't know who we are. We really don't. Know is a huge word. Know is an absolute state. If you say you know something, you know it absolutely. And we humbly suggest the only thing you know absolutely is something's going on at your location. Sound and fury and progress. And you got tons of names for it and labels, and you've been educated to think about it and see it in a certain way. But the bottom line is you don't know what it is. You don't know who you are. So this person said, well, I think I do know who I am. I really, really think I know who I am. And you want to field that? Pick it up, Kate.
Well, I'm not really sure, exactly what you mean by that. But
well, I mean, we say you don't know who you are. Anybody out there in TV land, you don't know who you are, really.
Well, maybe.
And somebody said they really do know who they are. So answer that. It sounds like a direct refutation of our work, of our premise, a very foundational premise. We don't know jack blank about anything. The only thing we know absolutely is something's going on.
I don't know. I feel like, Arthur, you've got something you really want to say, and when you kind of fling it over to me like that, it just seems kind of odd.
Put you on the spot.
I don't really like to respond in that way.
So then I'll respond to myself. I love to answer my own questions. So.
Yeah.
Enough said. Walt Whitman, one of the enlightened poets of all time, there's certainly one in there with William Blake, who knew there was more than meets the eye, than meets the meat. A famous poem was, "What is the grass?" asked the child, holding it to me with, bunched hands. I screwed that up. How could I answer the child? I don't know what it is any more than he. That's the point. The point is, if you really look at what you think you know about anything, you are going to wind up admitting that you don't know. Everything ends in uncertainty. It's like saying, when you die, I know I'm going to go be with Jesus. No, you don't. No, you don't. Or I'm a child of God. I'd philosophically or theosophically or metaphysically argue with that one immediately. You're not a child of God. You are God in a state of amnesia.
Well, then I do know who I am. I'm God.
Yeah, if you said that, okay.
So
touche. Excellent argument. You're God.
Right.
So what's your experience?
So
tell me, oh Lord, or lady in this case, apparently.
Well, you were saying that you would argue with I'm a child of God, but you wouldn't argue with I am God. So
that's a complete theory on my part.
Right. Okay. Good.
Yeah, that's metaphysics.
That's right.
That's a metaphysical theory.
So it's not something you really know either.
But then I'd go to the mat with logically.
Okay. Yeah.
What is God? There's something outside of the infinite, the one. What do you think the one means? The one, period. It's like
but that's
Charles
assuming
Darwin.
That the one exists.
That's assuming that the one exists.
Right.
Well, this person is saying, I am a child of the one.
Yeah.
And I'm saying, is there a Mrs. One? Did the one, have relations with Mrs. One? And
no,
that's
I think the one had relations with oneself.
With itself. That's even worse.
Yeah.
It's the great masturbator. That there's the whole idea of creation. It's like, God went to the hardware store or got some clay and spit on it and made man, or some baloney, some understandably primitive, idea, trying to coexist with the fact that you're an atom in a titanic universe that seemingly is completely indifferent to whether you were ever born.
So I think you're saying that no matter what our beliefs about who we are, they come down to beliefs.
They come down to, I don't know.
Right. Even the one that you say you basically believe in, Arthur, which is
a theory.
There is
there's
just the one.
I don't know whether it's true
still
or not.
A theory.
Part of
me
hopes when you die it's complete oblivion.
Right. So
game over. I'm tired.
That's what, and that's really where we're coming from about this. We don't know who we are. Is what the meaning, as Arthur said. The meaning of the word know is very powerful.
It means you really know. Not really know, but you know absolutely. There's without any qualifiers.
And
know.
And unfortunately or fortunately, all of our knowledge is contingent. All of our knowledge is based on beliefs and theories about the universe.
Anybody ever get a postcard from a dead person? Or you had a tingle once, or you approached the casket and felt the rush. I felt that. I felt those nebulous things. I felt the Holy Spirit. I haven't a clue what that means. I know I felt something. But we have to be careful. Because what is a little knowledge is a dangerous thing. It's about to get the human race killed. Al Gore. I know that our climate change is a conspiracy by leftist, godless scientists for some reason. But I know it. The Bible says it. I believe it. That settles it. No, it doesn't. It doesn't settle it at all. You want to use that book. There are Hebrew scholars who have been poring over it for, we did trying to interpret it and fathom the meaning. I'll tell you the meaning. You want a quick meaning of the Bible? The Old Testament means when you walk with the truth, which is God, presumably. You walk with the truth, in relationship with something bigger than yourself, in humility, your life works. When you don't do that, your life sucks. Then Jesus came along, New Testament. You want to follow Jesus? Go. There's a stack of crosses over there, One cross each, first line on the left, come on, because you have to die to your God of overinflated sense of self. And then you'll be a follower of mine. You have to be willing to die in order to live. End of Bible
and so I'm thinking there are people out there that are thinking, what does it matter? I mean, why are these people going on about this question of identity?
That somebody more or less alluded to that at our get-together that a handful of people showed up at.
I don't think you can say that on
just too many good breweries open. So it was. Answer is that a real cornerstone, another cornerstone. How many corners do we get of our work? Is that the source of all fear, terror, horror is the unknown, and the source of all hatred is fear. Fear and hatred, Fat, fearful, and hateful is no way to go through life, son.
Now, wait a minute.
So, fear and hatred are uncomfortable states.
Right.
They are not pleasant. And I don't care how much you go through life believing that, look, on the sunny side, Jesus is going to take me home. It's superficial. It's like a living on pain medication. It's a narcotic. Other people have other, ways of getting through life.
Okay.
So that's why it's important, the stuff we're talking about, because there's no real satisfaction. Because there is a persistent terror that is covered up by busy work, like making money, slaving, and working every day, and getting your weekends off and running your errands, and pretty soon your goddamn life's over. That was your life, mate. Do I get a second chance? No, that was it.
Okay. All right. So what the point Arthur's making is that the unknown is a source of fear. And so when we don't know who we are, we're afraid. And what happens when you're afraid is you are...
You're afraid, uncomfortable.
Yes.
But it also, that's the basis of all hatred.
Right, okay.
Makes you aggress.
Okay, you aggress. Fight. Okay, but so what I was saying no about and looking like maybe, this is interesting.
I was wondering what that was about.
So you're saying that everybody lives with this foundational truth that they don't know who they are. And as a result, there's a primal fear underneath, and that's the source of our anger and our insanity.
Angst.
Right, because we don't know who we are. But at the same time, you're telling me that nobody knows who they are is the truth.
That's right.
So what are we supposed to embrace our not knowing and live in this existential angst?
Right.
Well, so we should just really get in touch with the fear.
It's called
So
really
wait a second.
The fool on the hill is a high state.
So you're telling people out there. That's what I'm trying to get to. You're telling people embrace your ignorance, embrace your fear,
even better
embrace
than that. Embrace your craziness.
Yeah.
Because, like it or not, we have to walk around acting like we know who we are and we know when we are and we know where we are and all that crap.
Right.
And the truth is, you're lost in space.
But isn't this going to make us all angry?
You're a mortal, dying ignoramus. What?
But if we all really embrace our ignorance, which means we embrace, so we're really afraid, then aren't we all going to be even angrier than we already are?
Let's see. What's our proposed 2 laws of the universe? Exist as form, as a separate thing, and survive as that form. Do you think if you're on the Titanic and you know the iceberg's just hitting, you know the ship's going down, do you think it's better to pretend like Jesus is coming soon and is going to whisk you off the deck? That you believe that God will provide, and I'm gonna just pull up a deck chair here and watch the fun because I know that
God won't let me drown.
God is not gonna let me drown.
Right.
The old joke about we sent you 2 helicopters on a speedboat.
Right.
What do you want? And so it's either that or face the reality of where you are at, which empowers you. You're still in a desperate situation. But I suggest there is, and you suggest too, it's your book, that there is a modicum of comfort to be had from being in touch with reality instead of walking around like, oh, I know who I am, I know where I am, I know what I'm doing. I know where I came from, and Jesus is going to take me home. Yeah, sure. Sure, thank you very much, Mr. Helper. Yeah, that's right. You know all that stuff. You believe that stuff. I mean, there are people in mental institutions who are so out of touch with reality, like an anorexic who looks in the mirror and sees a skeleton, or rather sees a fat person instead of their living skeleton being reflected back at them. They can't even perceive objective reality as it is. And that's why we say in our work also that it's not objective reality that's in trouble, it's our wildly distorted opinions about objective reality, dog, cow, table, ceiling, floor. It's our opinion, our evaluation of all that stuff that's really redshifted into madness, and it's about to get us killed, like better dead than red.
So it sounds to me like maybe more of the problem is not so much the not knowing, that the not knowing isn't the problem. The not knowing is the fear of what that means, the fear that not knowing imperils our survival, the fear that we can't live without knowing. So we have to construct some kind of belief structure to cover up the fact that we don't know. And maybe a lot of the fear comes from the fear of that edifice of false knowledge being exposed as false.
Very, very much so. There's no security to be had in that. There's no peace.
Right.
It's an act. It's faking it.
So that by embracing our...
Along with other goodies, like I have free will, and when I robbed that bank, I chose to do wrong. I wasn't a psychopathically twisted person who, like that poor woman who had her baby in the Bilo Center down in wherever it was. Yeah. Their free will choice, other damaging things like that, like when you're young and you're deciding how you're playing the game of life, deciding the events or everything is driving you to certain, usually hideous. Even if you want to play a winner, I'm going to be a big shot for my life. I'm going to really overachieve. And you have parents who push you along in that direction. There's no satisfaction in that. You're an act. You don't know who you are. And there's no satisfaction in walking around thinking you know who you are That's even more out of touch with reality. That's what we say makes us really crazy. The objective fact is you don't know who you are. And if you kept that in mind, there would be not humility. It's not some airy-fairy, nice little idea. It's being in touch with objective reality. It's being in touch with your actual, literal, factual limitations. And at least there's some comfort in that, we suggest. I mean, knowing I'm crazy when I really kind of get it has served me enormously over the years in writing this book. Somebody asked another question at this event, thought he really got me, was like, you talk about love and compassion, and yet look at the vitriol that comes out of your mouth about somebody like George W. Bush. I wound up apologizing to George W. Bush. That's an excellent point. A lot of you out there, if you've watched the show at all, certainly in my case, Katie's all, even-tempered and mild-mannered, and I'm a raving lunatic. And that's the truth. I am a raving lunatic. I was raised in chaos, not an excuse, but it's also not an irrelevant fact. Mm-hmm. I'm an extremely selfish, it was a spoiled child. I like to get my way. I think the world should be so much more grown up than it is. Jesus Christ, we kicked ass and took names during the 60s, resulting in the right-wing weasel Nixon going down in flames. And I thought maybe we had gotten somewhere.
You're going to have to apologize to Nixon now?
Oh, sure. I hated that son of a bitch. I hated his guts. Just like I hated Bush. He took literally probably years off my life hating him. And it's not even Bush. And hatred is never deserved because either I believe when I get my own philosophy, when I'm sane, mm-hmm. Everybody's crazy. This country's crazy. To put some weasel like Bush in the White House, he is a weasel. That's an objective, I believe, verifiable fact. He's mm-hmm. a towel-snapping, privileged little preppy who stole 2 elections and took this country in ways that I really seriously doubt we'll ever recover from. Any remote claim to the high ground, which I think is a bit of a joke anyway, just like what's going on in Egypt. We're in bed with every dictator. We never met a dictator we didn't like, as long as he was good for our interests, especially business. But it's not justified in hating someone. They're crazy. We're all crazy. That's the point of this show. And I lose that because I'm crazy too. I'm afraid when somebody threatens me, like on the road, somebody does something that threatens me, I get angry. And it's a reflex. Mm-hmm. I'm afraid. The basis of all hatred is fear. And when I see somebody just wiping their butt on the Bill of Rights and the Constitution and taking this country down a very dark, maybe irrecoverable road, I get angry. But that's not accomplishing anything because the real diagnosis is there's a nutcase in the White House. How can we get somebody who's more in touch with objective reality? Anyway, all over the road. So the basic point, and I'll shut up. I really will shut up. Is the premise is you can't know who you are because the great poem by Wordsworth, maybe Flower in the Crannied Wall, or maybe it was Blake.
I don't know.
Tennyson, one of the three, I think. Flower in the Crannied Wall. I pluck you out of the.
I think that's Tennyson. I think.
Yeah, I think so. I pluck you out of the wall, little flower, and hold you in my hand. I'm mangling this one too. And if I could know who you are and what you are. All in all, I would know what God and man is. You know anything, absolutely, babies, and you're home.
So,
other than, there's either or you know it all.
So I wanted to, 2 things came to mind, and one is that this whole idea of embracing insecurity. Which is kind of where, what I was hearing, while you were talking earlier, is that it's not so much the not knowing that is causing us the problems, but it's the erecting this false knowledge that's causing us problems. And so what does it really mean to embrace that insecurity? And that's one of my favorite Alan Watts books is called The Wisdom of Insecurity. And that's really what he says in the book is that that learning to accept that we don't know who we are, and to quit trying to define ourselves, quit trying to make rules and boundaries around ourselves and everything else. That that's the way to flow in reality much more smoothly than to, when we try to make rigid walls. And that's, what we keep hitting up against is our boundaries, and they're boundaries that exist in our minds, of our definitions of this is this and this is that. And, like I was thinking about identity, how many of our problems are caused by identity? I'm an American. You are not an American. I mean, did you know that means that if you are in this country, you don't have rights under our Constitution because you're not a person. You're not an American. I mean, imagine. It's like that we don't even, these human rights don't apply because you're not American. You're not. I'm Christian. You're Muslim. You don't get to go to heaven. We fight huge wars because of our identity in politics, or our identity in religion. I'm
White.
Female and he's male. I mean, how many conflicts come from this definition of what it is to be a woman and what it is to be a man? Then the color. I'm white. You're red. What does that mean? That means I can slaughter you because you're not. You're not my.
You're not what culture defines as truly acceptable,
right,
or most maximally
right,
acceptable.
So we have gotten into enormous problems in this whole, through this identifying this is this. This is what's important. How about human versus animal? What has rights in the natural world? We've kind of expanded out to sort of intelligent animals, but we still treat living creatures in the natural world as being a different category than us, and being able to, we can exploit and destroy
and eat
the natural world because it's of a different, it's not the same identity as us. So identity is vastly important in how do we relate to what's around us. And so, I mean, when I asked why is this important, this is really what I was thinking about, was this is incredibly important because my entire attitude towards the world rests 100% on identity, on how I identify myself and how I identify everything else in the world.
Well, look at the environmental movement, how the damage that we did. I mean, they could damn well cut down the Pacific Northwest, practically every freaking tree.
Yeah, we were out
Plenty
there.
more where that came from. They'll grow right back.
I never thought a state should have a smell until we were in Oregon, and I decided that the state smell of Oregon was sawdust. Because, I mean, everywhere you went, there were logging trucks.
Should have a chainsaw on their flag. But yeah,
right.
Somebody wrote a letter once that we talked about. Bertrand Russell had this thing called the confusion of logical classes.
Huh. Uh-huh.
And that kind of rings a bell. I don't really know what that means, but it was like the way we divide
right.
objective fact, which we think the objective mind, which is concerned with critical judgment. When you're planning an Apollo mission to the moon, you better believe there's no belief involved in that. There's no opinion. I mean, they're capable of, like, when Apollo 13, that adventure, the scene where they have to modify the carbon monoxide unit, just jerry-rig it out of the stuff that was available to the astronauts on board, duct tape, literally in the cover of the flight manual. That was not, even that was not opinion. Mm-hmm. That was objective, dealing quickly with objective reality and inventing it and making it work, putting it together. That was objective mind, making critical judgment and solving a problem. There's that logical class, and then there's another class called subjective opinion. Jesus is coming soon. Jesus died on the cross for my sins. What else? I mean, endless. George W. Bush is a good man. I looked into Putin's heart, and he's a good man. I looked right into his soul. That's opinion. It cannot be verified. It cannot be consistently verified as factual. It's an opinion. And read our book, Game of God: Recovering Your True Identity, gameofgod.com. We posit that beliefs are surviving entities that live in our head like parasites that determine the way we see the world. Like going up to the Pacific Northwest and just merely sawing down every tree we could get a hold of and thinking there's no consequence. Hey, DDT kills bugs, you know? Let's just sow the world with DDT until the consequences start becoming clear.
So you're saying that there's two classes, and I'm not sure that this is what Bertrand
Russell.
Well, that's
not really what I meant. I mean, logical classes. There's a subjective mind. Not that it's intrinsically logical by any means. If anything, it's hugely illogical.
But it has its own interior logic, and actually, I thought that was what you were saying, and that's one of the problems. It's one of the reasons it's so difficult to combat, is because within itself it seems to make sense. And it's only when you're standing outside it that you can see its illogical nature. Because that's how the mind convinces us to believe in something. It's because it gives us rationalizations and justifications that make sense to us. And so, if it's something like women are superior to men, I believe it, and I've got a whole lot of reasons for why that's true. And it's very logical to me. It's very self-evident to me. So I have to get outside myself to be able to look back at that subjective belief and
you did say superior, didn't you?
Yes, of course I did. It's self-evident. Didn't I already also say that?
Speaking of flying to the moon and back, electric lights.
Well, it's true. You may have seen recently.
I think they're smarter than men. I'll tell you that. I think they're much more clever.
The contributors to Wikipedia are overwhelmingly male, and there was some questioning recently, why is that so? I mean, I've not contributed. I almost did once, years and years ago, but I didn't because I was I was afraid, and this kind of crazy beliefs I have about my loser status. I couldn't challenge that by actually doing something positive in the world, so I didn't. But so anyway, why don't women contribute? So I think that's kind of what you were asking there about what's wrong with women if they're so superior. Why?
No, it's an old argument. I mean, there's a very good reason why men have been at the forefront of science and made them gigantic contributions in every possible area.
Yeah.
That they have, because women were second-class citizens.
Right.
They were not, talk about a waste.
Talk about a long-standing subjective belief, right? That there's a basic difference.
I mean, got the freaking vote less than 100 years ago in this country, in the land of the free. Good Christ.
That's right. That's right.
And still, to overcome the wave of the way they played it for time out of mind.
Right. We think that change in human behavior should happen instantly.
I do, because I'm spoiled. I want my pie right now with ice cream on it.
And it's hard to really see the whole sweep of human history and to allow changes, to allow that the way male-female relations, keep continuing that example, that something that's took centuries, if not millennia, to cement in place are going to take longer than 20 or 40 years to unravel. Or actually, they call, you should say, 140 years. The first real movement towards women's liberation happened in the 1800s. And, we kind of forget about those women.
And women have to play my famous pit and tusk analogy, which is that Freudian enough for you? A male is epitomized, the male style throughout all history is the bull elephant, charging through the jungle, flattening everything that gets in the way, trumpeting and roaring and making a big fuss. The female style, necessarily, wisely, cleverly, intelligently, has been to get up in the clearing ahead and dig a deep hole in the jungle floor and embed sharp bamboo spikes at the bottom of it, of the pit. A woman is a deep pit. And cover the whole over with a delicate lattice work of leaves and branches, and so when the blundering male circus rolls across the clearing, it just into the pit. Game over. Women use their brain. Men use their brawn. And their brains, of course, as well.
Yeah, and
but
women
when they're
don't
free
use
to
their
express and
minds.
you're free to participate and you're free to examine, if you're not saddled with, bringing up baby, and keeping the cave swept out, you don't have time to contribute to Wikipedia or to help invent the light bulb. You're at home where you belong.
That's right. Well, that's how it
Chained
was
to the
for a
stove
long
with
time.
a leash long enough to reach from the stove to the bed.
Yeah, and you know what? Now that leash has been cut, it's like women still have, it's like they tied the leash themselves. I'm thinking of after Arthur and I published The Game of God, a man who was working, he was getting his degree in not psychotherapy, but some variation of therapy, psychological therapy. And he was writing a master's paper on it. Wonderful, wonderful theory. And he had come across the Game of God, and he wanted to use the Game of God some in his thesis. And he ended up coming visiting us. And we were so excited. I mean, here was somebody we had so much to talk about. Our ideas, his ideas, how they matched and interacted. And he was traveling with his wife. And so when they came over to our house, and the woman said, "Okay, Katie, let's go shopping." And I'm like, "You've got to be kidding! I've been looking forward to this for weeks. We're talking about ideas here." And I could tell she was just as shocked. She could not imagine that I wanted to sit there and do something as boring as talk about philosophy with her husband. She wanted to go visit antique stores.
It gives you a great idea where their relationship
And I
was
thought,
at, which
I
is
mean,
perfectly
first of all,
true.
it was like her assumption that as a female, I would not be interested in having an intellectual conversation. Number two, that she would really so little share in her husband's life that she wouldn't want to participate, if not just partly just to listen, if that's all she did, just so she could, be that in his life that way. But really, the most important part was that she assumed that I, as a female, would have no interest, that I would be much more happy shopping than discussing ideas. And I think there's a huge number of women that are like that.
Old ways die hard.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
being the sex object, and as much as
Yeah.
that's,
Talk about a leash women won't let
that's
go
a
of.
lot of power in that one, ladies.
That's for sure.
Yeah, women like power, just like men do.
That's right.
That's what we think the universe is, an interplay of powers. And the strong force always overcomes the weak force. And sometimes it can be advantageous to play the weak force when actually you're getting just as much mileage. And that's kind of part of the female style is playing it weak, playing it helpless, playing it saintly. Oh, why do you do this for me? Why? Yeah, so where are we going with this? That was one consideration. The other, that's my answer to that. I'm crazy. That's what I told the guy at the...
Answer to what? Isn't that your answer to everything?
Ill-attempted... you're goddamn right.
No,
What
but
else is
you
it?
said to that, and I'm not sure what you were referring to. This was my answer to that.
The answer to hope, we've established that, nobody knows who they are.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody knows who they are. You have ideas about who you are, but know, once again, is a gigantic word. To say you know means you absolutely know, and nobody knows absolutely anything other than something's happening. Sound and fury in progress.
Mm-hmm.
Big Bang event still rolling. But even that's a fable. Nobody knows. Maybe there wasn't a Big Bang event. Maybe the Christers have it right. Maybe, the D-Lawd, created the world in 6 days, and on the 7th he rested. And
I think the idea that there was a Big Bang, what has that been, about 20 years in scientific?
More than
except
that.
not much.
Oh, yeah. Well,
30? Okay, 30. Woo! I take the Big Bang with a grain of salt. I mean, it's all of science with a grain of salt. And I think
with humility, and
right,
the magic
with humility.
ingredient of humility. They,
Right.
You know, we enjoy a digital camera that's recording this, and
right. But what I'm saying is,
electric
though,
lights,
that
central
to
heat.
say that this is the foundation of, this is where things started. What I'm saying is not to believe science either, because, just for one reason, that science's ideas of what's true have changed fairly regularly. You may have noticed.
And there's a core of incredible arrogance that runs through science because
Right.
they're our latest god. They're the secular god now that is going to explain it all to us.
Yeah, we watched a couple episodes of the Neil deGrasse Tyson's Nova Science Now, I think is what it's called. It's kind of a terrible name. And there's one that was very interesting to us. It was about how the brain works. And at the end, he basically sums it up just without even a shred of doubt in his voice, that the mind is the operation of the brain. There is nothing separate. The mind is not separate from the workings of the brain. It's just thoughts or firings of neurons, and we'll figure it out
That's
sooner
all
or later.
life is.
That's
This
right.
is a biochemical,
Electrical
electrical.
process.
Yeah.
That's right.
That's all it is.
That's right. So that's all you are, folks. It's just a random firing of electrical impulses.
You are a fluke of the universe.
right.
You have no
Covered
right
this
to
one.
be here. And whether you can hear it or not, the universe is laughing behind your back.
So what does it mean to
National
live?
Lampoon's Radio Dinner.
What does it mean really to live in that insecurity, and to live, to quote Alan Watts, the wisdom of insecurity, to live in that not knowing? I mean, is that really possible to stay without?
I'm huffing because if you can stand there holding the door open at the shower stalls at Auschwitz, you can rationalize anything.
Yeah.
Some of my favorite rationalizers are the hardcore atheists who just put all their trust in science. It's all you need. You don't need to believe in anything greater than yourself, some deity, to be a good person.
I think maybe you misunderstood me.
Oh, I
I'm saying
probably did.
not. Of course, there's the list of ways people have rationalized beliefs is endless. No, I'm talking about, can you live without belief? What does it look like to live without belief? What does it look like to live without an idea of who I am?
I believe when I wake up in the morning that when I go downstairs, the coffee stuff is going to be exactly where it is, where it was last seen yesterday morning at that bleary-eyed hour.
Yes.
There are all sorts of beliefs.
Right.
However, the belief that life is just going to work out, that what was that Martin Mull thing about the woman that was really very overweight and her parents kept telling her to just wait. You just haven't found the guy who's man enough to take on a woman appreciate a woman of heft. And after 20 years, when this philosophy began to wear thin, what we're talking about, the magic antidote to madness is to become aware that you're mad.
Yeah.
And at that point, it's another variation of he who knows doesn't know. But he who doesn't know knows. He knows that he doesn't know, which means you get to actually know something. You know a hell of a lot more than walking around thinking you know when you don't. And that can lead, that humility is what we call just being in touch with your limitations, being in touch with the limitations of your beliefs. Can cause you, I think I'm getting sick, can cause you to start questioning all of your assumptions
All right.
about
Well,
reality.
that sounds really conceptual, Arthur.
But
You're
you can't
always
live.
getting...
No, you can't live without beliefs. You're going to have beliefs. That's where
Right.
you're stuck.
Right.
You can, but then you're infinity.
But
You're
that's
no
what
longer finite. You're home base when you don't have any beliefs left. Like what.
So you're saying we shouldn't have beliefs about who we are, but we're going to have them anyway? Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm saying you need to be in touch with the obvious, objective fact that reality, to function in the world, you have beliefs. They exist.
Right.
It's just, are you a blind adherent to the only, that all Jews are money grabbers and that, George Bush is the epitome of evil, the great beast. Or that Jesus is coming any day now. What's it been, 2,000 years? Yeah, sure. I think he's coming back. Far be it from me to question, challenge anyone's optimism.
Okay, so you're saying I can't exist without beliefs. So I can't say I'm not going to have a belief about who I am. I'm going to have beliefs
your belief
about
Arthur is an idiot and a hopeless case. You might want to look at, are there any limitations to that, or is that an absolute fact?
So, yeah, so you're saying we can't live without beliefs, but we can actively question our beliefs.
Yeah, get in touch with just how true they really are. I mean, isn't that what life's all about? Who wants to go through life with their head up their ass? I mean, really up there. Not even a coal miner helmet to give you any reference point.
Now, Arthur's being a little free with his language today. But you know what?
I'm not well.
He saw...
Have some compassion,
Arthur likes to watch WLOS for the weather, he says, but he ends up watching the news sometimes. And they actually had footage of a person saying pissed off. So we figured if they could say that on Channel 13, ABC, Asheville News.
Sinclair Grove.
We thought, you know what? We could say it. So you know what? I just did say it. And where is the limits on language here? So if you don't like the word, if you don't like the phrase pissed off, and you're going to call URTV to say, watch their language, well, maybe you should call WLOS and ask them about their language.
Yeah. Believe me, if your kids, if your kids have much graver problems than language, and they hear much worse than this in school, like today probably in kindergarten.
Good God, what they hear in music, rap music, my God. Okay, so...
We're not crazy. There's another good example.
But you know what, I think...
Jungle music and tattoos and piercing and whatever. Look at me.
But I think, Arthur, that there is a way...
I have pierced every orifice you see.
And can't see.
And can't see. I love those. A chicken bone, a solid gold chicken bone thrust through your nostrils. What next? Good God.
Okay, well, I just want to say
diarrhea.
That
We've already had Generation X, and we've had Generation X lax, is what I call it. And now we have Generation Diarrhea.
Yeah. Okay.
Generation D.
So I think that there is a way. I think there is a way that you can embrace insecurity. I really do think that is also possible. That you can embrace not knowing that's possible, and that it's actually the wise thing to do, which is to not, because we like to rush to get the answers. We like to rush to figure things out. And actually, that's one thing a scientist will tell you. One of the things that the tools in science is to keep your mind open as long as possible and to not rush to certainty, not rush to answering something, but to put out your hypothesis into the world and then take in the evidence without prejudice so that you are making conclusions based on the evidence and not on your prejudice about the way it should be. And so that's not how our minds work at all. Our minds, we have prejudices about the way the world should be. And so that's what makes our theory. And so then everything that happens to us is viewed from that prejudiced point of view. And so we don't just see things the way they are. We see things based on how we think they should be. And by embracing my uncertainty, means I don't have expectations about the way it should be. And I just allow it to be the way it is and accepting it from a neutral point of view. And it's a much, much more peaceful way of living in the world.
Yeah, this is a more living example of it. I'm still railing against the dying of the light.
Well,
I'm really an infantile psychology. I've just, I've fought reality. I've pushed the river my whole life. I've rarely surrendered. And the times I have, it's been great. And it still works that way. When I can basically laugh at myself and not take it so seriously. I apologize to the younger generation. And just as I've always said, that denigrating your ancestors is the hallmark of a punk. Well,
yes, good one.
Railing against, this worthless younger.
Right.
We were in the streets. We were kicking names. We stopped the Vietnam War. We threw Dick Nixon out. We had women's rights, the environmental movement, civil rights. I'll have to bleep that. Because I'm getting angry again. It's
but the thing they're kind of like, and look at your generation now.
Well, what about my generation? Where are they? They gave up in disgust.
That's
right.
The
real ones just took to the hills and forget it.
But anyway, you're saying, overseas. I believe that you were saying was that it was the hallmark of a geezer.
That's it, a hallmark of a geezer.
To denigrate
younger generation.
That's right. How long has that been going on? Right.
All you worry about is your freaking careers and making money, just like brainless schmoes of yesteryear.
All like that.
No, they're not all like that. A lot of them have very liberal views, which they discuss at the coffee house or in the beer parlor.
Okay. So
can't stop, can I? Just can't shut up about it.
Right, because you know what I was thinking of
when
you were saying
it's terribly wrong with the world, and we are. It's not like just any other time. This is a time when we could all go bye-bye. If anybody noticed the weather, stupid Al Gore, what's happening here, that we could be on the last legs of environmental collapse, termination of the human race, ice age, brought on by some stupid, India and Pakistan getting into an atomic bomb exchange, blah, 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 blah. It's kind of like, I don't have anything else to offer. This is it. This is what I've got to offer is, I think we're all in a lunatic asylum, and I think the asylum is on fire. And I'm trying to say, wake up. Let's wake up. Help me. Let's get bigger than politics. Politics is so limited. Of course, I mean, cat. Come here, kitty.
So and as you've said before, and we've said before that maybe if somehow you could get the anger out of
I'm afraid.
And someone a viewer gave me this book that's People in Quandaries. I think it's and it's written in 1945. That was really you don't usually read books written way back in the dark ages like that anymore. But it's very interesting. I've just started it, but I love this thing. He kind of diagnosed this disease that so many people suffer from, and it just I think you could use that to say what's happened to Arthur. He calls it the IFD. Idealism leads to frustration, which leads to despair. I think he used despondency, but it's despair or depression.
Yeah, you're pretty despondent when you're depressed and in despair.
Right. And I think that's that is true for Arthur. He was very idealistic when I met him, and very positive, very optimistic, and there was the angry sides of your personality, but it was not the dominant side. The dominant side was this optimistic idealism.
It's all going to work out.
That's right.
Jesus is coming soon,
and I'm
going to be enlightened any day now.
And what this author says, I think, I'll have to read more of the book to really know, but is that the frustration comes because the idealism is too vague.
Maybe too out of touch with reality.
It's not really right, and that's, I think, exactly what he means. So it's not specific enough about what is possible and what you really can accomplish and what you want to accomplish. It's just sort of this vague, the world's going to, this utopia is just around the corner, and that's kind of ways the 60s was.
Any young people out there relate to that?
And eventually a vague idealism will lead to frustration because it can never be enough. It can never really satisfy it because it's too vague.
Because it's in direct conflict, opposition to objective reality, which has a way of grinding it down to the point of, I'll give you a forecast. It's going to be gray, it's going to be dark, and it's going to last you the rest of your life.
Right, and the idealism also has this. It's like everything's going to be perfect. Everything's going to be wonderful. So that means that nothing will be awful. Because if everything's
When
wonderful,
the roll
nothing's
is
awful.
called up yonder,
So part of the
when
frustration
roll
is that,
called up yonder.
is this totally unrealistic idea
when the
of what's
saints
possible
go
in this
marching
dualistic universe. There is no place of perfect, happiness forever.
Look on the bright
There's
side
always going to be
of
happiness
the
and
sun.
and there's going to be successes and failures in every day of our lives. That's
It's a beautiful
reality.
day in the neighborhood.
So
A
if
beautiful
you're
day
looking
a
for
neighbor. Won't
a
you be
life that,
mine?
and your idealism means a time when the problems have ended in your life because you have enough money or you have enough success or you have enough love, you're inevitably going to be dissatisfied and disappointed and frustrated. And then if that frustration goes on long enough, it turns into full-fledged despair, depression. And I think this is a really nice way of looking at, basically the human condition. All of us suffer from this to some degree or another. We all have these dreams when we're children of this one, this how we're going to make a difference in the world or how life is going to look. And it never, for most of us, it does not work out that way. And
Someday my
That's
prince will
right.
come.
we get divorced, we get fired, we lose all our money in the stock market crash. Our children hate us.
We
die.
We get old.
That's right. And
And it just doesn't look like the big pink bow is going to get tied on it and it's all going to work out the way you thought it was going to work out. Boo-hoo.
That's right. So maybe some of that
that's all technically true, but good Christ almighty, and this country is really, if I was going to die, I really wouldn't want to die in this country. I'd go over the Mexican
No, wait a minute.
border.
If I was going to die, you are going to die. So I think you need to rephrase it.
That's true. When I die, I hope I have enough strength to just get over to the border in Mexico or Canada. Just, I don't think it'd be Canada. I'd die of boredom just crossing over.
Well,
that
maybe you
French
can
where
make
they
it go a
say
little
Triumph the
faster.
insult comic dog said about the French Canadians he was interviewing. Oh, you're French Canadian? I say you're boring and obnoxious. No, it's like we've had such opportunities, and maybe the '60s, maybe that was really it. That was the last chance of something like a social upheaval, a real challenge to the status quo, the same old,
Wait a minute.
same
Last
old.
chance?
Could be,
Yeah.
could be. The world is more dangerous than it's by far than it was then. I think, despite all the nuclear toe-to-toe with the Ruskies. And the environment was not in the dire peril it's in now. It's really happening. But it's like, I relate. I don't learn nearly. I mean, I've learned some, but it's a pittance compared to what I think I should learn. I'm writing books on the freaking subject of how life should be more sane, how I should embody what I write. But it's almost like saying that someone who discovered the source of malaria shouldn't die of malaria.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I think it's a good one.
That's a very good
It's not
one.
a good cop-out.
No, it's not. It's your idealism. Your idealism includes the fact that, or the idea that
I'm
you
too
should
infected
be
with a madness to
you should
shed
be,
it.
No, that your idealism includes the idea that you should be like enlightened or some kind of, real, awareness above the average plane of human, the rest of humans, which I think you already are. But I mean, your idealism
At
means
least intellectually.
you should be like way up there.
I should be living.
And-
I should be
and
Christ consciousness.
And so your idealism is way out of touch with actual reality. So it's going to lead to frustration and despair.
It has.
Yeah.
It's like the
So
life
maybe
and hell
if you
character of
go-
boyfriends to avoid or something, or your categories of boyfriend.
Yeah.
One is frustrated genius, and another one was old man grumpus, and at the last part of old man genius, frustrated genius was careful may turn into old man grumpus, and that's kind of what I.
Well, this
it's like
kind of makes me
fed up
think
with the struggle.
in Est, which Arthur and I
What
both
are we
did
doing?
Est
Who are we
back
convincing
in
here?
the
Why are we
70s.
even saying this?
The have-do-be fallacy. That most of us believe that the way to be something, like to be rich, to be famous, is first you have to have money, you have to have talent, you have to have connections. And then then
you
once
do.
you have those
Yeah.
things, then you can do, because once you have the money, then you can do the things that rich people do. When, if you have talent, then you can, do the creative things.
Well,
Once
Mr.
you have
Drysdale,
connections,
Jethro wants to be a rock star.
then you can do things because you're connected. And then once you have and do, then you can be rich, you can be famous, you can be happy. And in S, they said, no, that's completely backwards. The first thing is to be. And the way I would say it is to really be yourself. To quit trying to be something that you dream of, that idealism. Be yourself. And when you're really being and being who you are, then you do out of that being. Because you're not trying to do things other than who you are. It will come naturally because you're just doing out of your being. And once you do that, then the having flows out of that. And so I think that this whole idealism thing is it's that trying to be someone you're not. And that's what idealism is dreaming of something other than the way it is. And that's why we get depressed.
No, don't go too far with that.
I'm not saying you can't criticize the world for
It's not even
having wrong
criticize the world.
priorities.
It's seeing, it's like the first ape,
Yeah.
a la 2001, saw something in the existing environment not yet physically manifest.
Right.
Visualized that bone as a tool, as a weapon.
Right.
Well, that's what a freaking idealist is.
Right.
There's someone who sees, when I was a child, I was an idealist, and there's something wrong with adults. I could see it.
Right.
Those people were unhappy, overworked, underpaid,
You're right.
and over me.
You're right. Because what I was saying is it's not the idealism so much, it's the vagueness of it, that kind of dreaminess of it.
And see, I'd like love all the time, please. And so I don't mean romantic love. I mean loving complete strangers, loving my life, loving the way it is, experiencing profound satisfaction and peace. And even a kind of trust. I don't like the word trust, but just that it's going to work out. That it has worked out. It is. It's worked out. I can't even describe it. It's so foreign to me. I used to read Ayn Rand's books with her heroes, and if anybody else out there read them, anybody not drool ever wanting to be John Galt or Dagny Taggart if you were a woman, or maybe or Howard Rourke, these titans, these pillars of certainty and strength, who did not require the approbation of their fellows. One of my big problems. I desperately want recognition. Probably why I'm on this stupid show. Because I want recognition. I want to be praised mightily. I want you to grovel at my feet.
Worship you like a god.
Like a god, like the god I am.
And what's that from?
Well, that's not all a joke. That's from $5 Dog. You go on YouTube. Do a search for $5 Dog. It's this wonderful thing by Naked Rabbit Productions. Cathead Theater is another one, but
anyway,
great commentary on them. This is a wonderful genius of a guy that put this together. $5 Dog is especially toothsome.
So we are almost out of time.
Ed Begley,
so did you want to say
Robert
anything
Ryan.
else about being worshipped like a god?
I want to talk about $5 Dog. Here we are, almost out of time. So here we are. Another day on Planet Hell Run. A perfect day on a perfect planet Hell.
Another day of frustration and despair.
Can't wait. I think I'm getting sick.
Well, that's just an excuse to lie in bed. It's a great excuse.
I'll take what I can get. Whatever it takes. I should fall down the stairs and really be laid up for about 6 months. That's wintertime blues. It's a season. I get depressed about that. So, well, anyway, folks, whatever.
Close, we didn't want to open, so we're not going to close either.
Blah, blah,
blah,
blah,
blah.
I'll give you a prediction. It's going to be cold. It's going to be dark. And it's going to last the rest of your life.
And a long, lustrous winter.